And we are live. Brilliant. Thank you. So, welcome back, everybody. It's been a while since I've put a couple of videos on, and I wanted to kick off with an absolutely fantastic video for you. So this week, my guest is Dr. Dave Hill, the world's greatest hypnosis. He's got a fantastic record of hypnosis he's been doing since 1987, and we're going to cover so much today, including some of the CIA stuff he's done, some of the DOJ stuff he's done, some of his first shows, and some of the ongoing and brilliant shows that are up and coming, as well as something little secret for you all for the, to do with the music industry. So, Dave, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for inviting me on, Gavin. I appreciate it. And before you begin, I loved your book. So,
thank you. Well, thank you for joining us. We've got some great treats coming up for everybody. I've been following you for a while on social media as well myself, and I just love what you do. I think what I'd like to do, I think, to start with is perhaps dispel a couple of myths to do with hypnosis, and perhaps some of the differences between stage hypnosis and kind of, your progressive induction style kind of hypnotherapy kind of thing. So I'll hand this over to you. What would you say is the best way to kind of explain what hypnosis is?
Sure. Well, the first thing is to start with a definition. So my definition of hypnosis is it's an extraordinary state of mental, physical, and psychological relaxation. It opens up your subconscious mind to the non-critical acceptance of new thoughts, ideas, and concepts you now want. So to put it into comparison to therapy and stage shows, if you're coming in to see a hypnotist for therapy, you might be coming in for the number one reason to stop smoking. Number two, get rid of a phobia. Number three might be anxiety. Some people, weight loss, and others, memory improvement. So when you open up the subconscious mind, the new thoughts, ideas, and suggestions you now want would be to become a non-smoker, no longer have a fear of flying, no longer have anxiety when you sit down and take a test. So that's that premise. Now, if you're going to volunteer for a show, well, you're volunteering for a show for only one reason: to be the star of the show. So it's going to open up your subconscious mind to non-critical acceptance of the ideas, thoughts, and suggestions the stage hypnotist gives you on stage, so that you perform and do a great job. That's hypnosis. Now, hypnosis is also self-hypnosis. And what I mean by that is, another definition is, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So no matter what people think about all the things that people think they can do, we can't coerce someone to go into hypnosis behind their back. They need to give us permission. Now, you can hypnotize people that don't want to be hypnotized through continuous suggestion. So out where you live in England, there's a guy named Darren Brown, very famous mentalist and entertainer. And he did something called The Push, which is a television show that he produced, where he wanted to see if he could suggest somebody over a period of time to push someone off a ledge to kill them. And he found that he could. But it was a period of continual suggestion to make sure that they would do it. Now, some people's moral and ethics are so great, they're not going to do it, even if they've been conditioned. So can you make someone do something they don't want? Only under this premise. During a show, maybe someone says, have that girl take off all her clothes, because that's what guys want to see. Now, the only way that can happen is you would say, in a moment, you're going to be in a movie. And if you understand, nod your head for me. So you get permission, number one. In a moment, you're going to be in a movie making a love scene with your favorite male movie star. Who would that be? Maybe they'll say Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Chris Evans, somebody like that. So you'll say, great. You're going to be there with you. And it involves taking your clothes off. If that's okay with you, nod your head for me. Now, some will do this. They're not going to do it, but some will. So under the premise that they're making a movie, yes, they will do it.
Yeah.
Now, is that the right thing to do during a show? Absolutely not. But that's how you would make it. You're going to put them in a condition where they would do it only in that condition.
Yeah. I've seen similar things like that with Darren Brown does a fantastic example, and I believe he did one with an assassination once with a pistol as well.
Yeah,
same kind of thing. So fantastic how it can be worked. And I can't remember what the actual stats were, but I think it was somewhere in the region of like 1 in 4 people were able to be convinced.
We're able to do that.
Yeah. So brilliant. So
Yeah.
what I want to do in a moment then is I want, because your career is just phenomenal, some of the things you've done, but I know you've got a couple of interesting stories from the first two shows you've done, and then
Yeah.
we'll go on to some of the stuff you've done for the government, for the CIA, if that's okay.
Sure.
Brilliant.
So the very first show I did, I was trained by a gentleman named Gil Boyne, who moved to England in his older age. He passed away several years ago. But he was kind enough to spend a couple of years with me, teaching me how to do this. And one day he said, tonight we're going to do a show. And I always came as his assistant to learn what he was doing. He says, but tonight you're going to do the show. So we go to this gymnasium and we set up the sound equipment, put everything there. And then normally you're going to set up a row of folding chairs or banquet style chairs for the volunteers to sit in.
Mm-hmm.
And in a gym, normally one or both sides of the gym are pulled out so that people can watch. But none of that was happening there. And I said, well, where are the chairs? And how come the seats are not pulled out? He says, because the people coming today are going to bring their own chairs. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, you'll see. And we were at a VA center. I didn't see the sign because he purposely asked me a question, made me look at him, and I missed the VA center sign when we pulled in because he's a smart man. And they all come in their wheelchairs.
Yeah, I got you.
Except for the people who are tending to them, the staff.
Yeah.
And I look around and I'm like, Gil, you have to be kidding me. Because the skits that I put together in my mind to do a show involve people standing up, getting out of their chair and all this stuff. And now nobody can. And I said, so how's this going to work? He says, well, you're the hypnotist, you figure it out. So he then introduces me, and he's the one who gave me the name, the world's greatest hypnotist. So he says, oh, this is my student. He's the world's greatest hypnotist because I taught him, et cetera, et cetera. And now I have to get them to come up who want to volunteer, wheel themselves up and get themselves into a row. Mm-hmm. And I then proceeded to do my show, rethinking everything that I could so that they would do these skits in their chairs. And it worked out great, but it was very difficult. That was my first show.
Wow. So really thrown in at the deep end.
He just threw me right into the pool, so to speak, to learn to swim. Then the second show I did, I had moved to San Diego at the time I met Gil, and he was in a place called Glendale, which is up in the LA area. Mm-hmm. I had met a girl who later on became my wife, and I had posted an ad in the San Diego Union. The world's greatest hypnotist is now open for business. He needs work, therapy, and shows. I put this big full page ad. And when I met her, she had this ad because she had seen it in the San Diego Union. And she says, you are not the world's greatest hypnotist. There's no way. I've never heard of you. I don't even know what you do. And but we started going out. And I said, I just booked a show for 500 people. She said, really? I said, yeah. And it's in this neighborhood. So she grew up in San Diego. She said, there's no home in this neighborhood that can hold 500 people. I said, it's 500 people. I'm telling you, you want to go? You want to be my assistant? Let's go. You'll see how good I am. So we roll up to this house. She looks at it and she says, that's where we're going to do it. I said, yeah. I see the garage. She said, yeah. I said, you see the folding chairs, the white folding chairs? There's 2 rows of 5 seats. And there's a washer and dryer behind it. She says, I see the washer and dryer. What's that for? You're going to put your sound equipment there so you can run my sound. Now, back then, we didn't have CDs and MP3s and all the fancy stuff to play music for the show. We had cassette tapes. So she looks at me and she says, there's no way in the world this is going to work. And I said, well, it's even better. I said, it's all Pakistani and Indian people. And she says, well, they don't even understand you. So they're not going to understand what you're saying. And I said, do not be like that because they're open-minded. They believe in mysticism. It'll be a great show. And she says, and you teach someone to eat fire during the show, which I used to. And she said, I still do on a big show. You have to have permission. So she says, there's just no way you're going to you'll blow up the house. The place will burn down. And she says, here's the deal. Park the car so that we can leave. And I said, okay. And this is a true story. She says, give me the car keys when we're done. Because when you bomb, I'm leaving. And you can call someone to get a ride home and with all the equipment and you're stuck with them. So we go there, we meet everybody, and there's maybe 30 people. Mm-hmm. That's it. So they all stand in front of the garage to watch. And I get the 10 volunteers and they all go into hypnosis because I'm very well trained. I knew what to do. And we go through the show. We're having a great time. In the middle of the show is when I would do the fire eating. I
Yeah.
opened by eating fire. That was just something to do. Say, I'm going to warm up my voice, eat fire. People love that. Very, very much fun. And then in the middle, I picked a guy to teach him to eat fire. And she's looking at me because she thinks the guy doesn't understand what I'm saying, but he understood everything I was saying. So in 3 minutes, I role play with him what you need to do, the techniques and everything. He eats fire with an empty torch 3 times. Then I have it lit by her, and he eats fire.
Wow.
And then the place goes crazy for just 30 people. I hand her the torch back, and I said, see, world's greatest hypnotist, me.
Oh,
So
wow.
we get done with the show, and now we leave. We get paid. She collects the check, by the way. The check, all I charged way back then, this is 1987, it was $300. So she got the $300. We packed the car back up, and a friend of mine came and he videotaped it. So I have videotaped of this somewhere. His name was Matt Clifton. In case, Matt, you find me and you watch it, you just got famous with Gavin Stone. So we get in the car, and I said, well, what do you think? She goes, I'm never going to doubt you again. I can't believe what I just saw. But the money is mine because I had to put up with you.
Well,
those are my first 2 shows, and neither one of them was easy.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, wow. So I mean, some people come across barriers in their career, but to kick off with 2 huge barriers like that was that was a. And I suppose in some ways it was good because it made a lot of things easier from then on out for you.
Well, you learn, because I used to take anything I could do. So there would be an Irish bar would call, and they want entertainment, and they'd want you to hypnotize the people in front of the window that's facing the street on bar stools. Well, you're not supposed to do that because there's no back support.
Yeah,
but you can if you learn how to do things properly. And there's all the noise going on. So I said, we'll do it. And again, all these things I would take, my wife would say, why are you doing this to yourself? I said, because the more hard things you do, the easier it becomes to do what you do.
Yeah.
So away we went, and I would take every single thing I could do, no matter how big or small the audience was. There is a clip you can see on YouTube, on the Instagram page, of me on a thing called Creepy Coffee Movie Time. It's a 9-minute, one-take show that I did. And these are 2 guys dressed up as, they had some show they would do in the evenings on Friday night here in San Francisco. I don't even know if it's still on. They had asked me to come on the show for free. I had done 4 high school grad nights the night before. So I had no sleep because it was at 9 in the morning. And the high school grad nights were at midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Because lock-in grad nights for sober grad night to keep the kids safe. And I had a driver driving me around for these. Had no sleep. I went to this thing, and I couldn't work with anyone ahead of time. So when it's ready to go, we have a studio audience of maybe 100 people there. That's all, because it's a small show. And I asked for people who want to be hypnotized. So 5 people raised their hand. So there are 3 girls. We pick them to be zombies because the theme is zombies. It's a zombie movie. I hypnotize them real quick before we are going to film. And the guys who are there to do it, and they're wearing these weird things. They're called No Name, and I think his name Ballrock or something like that. I can't remember his name. They're wearing these outfits. They look crazy. And I hypnotize them real fast. They're just shocked at what they see. And I said, they'll just stay there standing. And when it's time, we'll make them zombies at the end of the show, and they'll zombie out to the front of the studio. So they're back there. And then I have a guy and a gal who wanted to be hypnotized. Never met them. They're standing there, and now we're going to do a show. So really all I have are 2 people. So in theory, if you get trained by a stage hypnotist, they will say, make sure there's 75 or more people in the room. You can ask for volunteers, so you can get 10 to 20% of them to volunteer to increase your odds. I don't have that. So I have 2. Now I hypnotize them fast, in less than 15 seconds, which you're not supposed to be able to do. So, because you've seen the induction process, it takes a period of time. But no, I learned how to do it quickly because I believe I can. That's the reason it works. And the person being hypnotized believes you can do it. That's the 2 secrets. If they believe you're a hypnotist, they believe you can hypnotize them, and you believe you can do it, you're there. So the first guy we hypnotize quickly, and we turn him into Sam the dog, and he goes for a walk, and he starts barking. So And now once he's hypnotized once, we can get him again later on. And then the girl we hypnotized multiple times. And then she believes later on she's dancing with Clive Owen, which is one of the characters. And they had a little band there and they played music. So they couldn't believe what they saw. This was 9 minutes, one take. So you can do anything if you practice all the time.
Yeah.
In any career.
Get the reps in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow! So, and have you found that there are any kind of demographic that are exceptionally easier to hypnotize, or any that are exceptionally harder, whether it be through age or career path or anything like that?
Great question. So, kids up to age 12, you really can't hypnotize them because they're already in trance.
Yeah,
they haven't developed this thing called the critical factor, which filters information that goes into your subconscious mind. So the easy way to explain that would be you have a 7-year-old boy and it's August and you say, don't get into cars with strangers. And he says, Dad, I understand. I'm not going to do that. And then a guy drives up in a Santa outfit and he says, you want to go meet Rudolph and the elves. Well, the kid wants to go with Santa Claus because he doesn't know the difference from right or wrong yet. So you can't work with them. If you're going to work with children, you have to tell them stories.
Yeah.
Because they're already in trance. So they're open for suggestion. So if you learn to tell them stories, you can work with them. You can help them stop wetting their bed. You can help them change lots of behaviors, but through storytelling.
Okay.
Once they reach the age of 12 and they develop this critical factor, they no longer believe in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. Then that group, which is, we'll just call it maybe age 14 to 16 to 35, they're the easiest people to hypnotize.
Wow.
Because they want to have fun.
Yeah.
So the only time they're difficult is if you're going to a corporate event and it's a small corporate event, maybe 30, 40 people. Even though they're young, they may not want to perform in front of their friends as a hypnotist show because they don't want to look silly.
Yeah.
So you have to overcome that barrier, but that's the easiest group. Then what happens from 35 to 65, they're more difficult, but you just need a higher percentage of people to work with, but you can still work with them. If they're engineers or accountants, they're very serious, but you have to remember they will focus on numbers.
Yeah.
So if you change the method you use to hypnotize them, which is we call an inducing trance, if you change it using things about numbers that they have to focus on, they won't fail because they have great intelligence and they'll follow your command because they want to follow the numbers. And the only problem is you can't tell them to lose the numbers like you do in a Dave Ellman induction where you'll lose the numbers. You count from 100 down to 95. You'll say, as I count down, each number just makes you more relaxed. You have to change the phrase. And by the time you get to a certain number, and it'll be before 90, you can't let them go forever. You'll just be relaxed because you know how to relax as you count backwards. And they understand that and they relax. So you can hypnotize them. It's just a little more difficult, but not that much. Then you get to the seniors where I'm at almost because I'm 105. So when you get there, you have a group that's either one of two ways. They just don't want to participate. They want to watch.
Yeah.
Or they've reverted back to childhood and they're the best subject in the world. So if you're doing a senior citizen center, you just need a lot of people because you need to know who wants to be that kid again.
Yeah.
And they have some physical issues you have to check out. Some of them might have a knee replacement. They might have a hip replacement. They might have fused spine. So you have to know all that before you start working with them.
Like you're not going to make things worse.
You don't want to hurt them. So because a lot of hypnotists like to lay people on top of each other, but somebody has a bad back or a bad neck, they can't bend their neck. And so if you try and force it, well, they're going to awaken from trance because they're startled and because you think you're trying to hurt them.
Yeah.
So that's
I've had similar things myself. I mean, as you know, I've learned a little bit from Richard Bandler. I've learned a little bit from Ellman, from Larry Ellman directly. One or two other people, some of the great names. And I remember there was a lady, a friend of mine. She asked me, she got really bad back pain, and she said, "Can you hypnotize me and take the pain away?" And I said, "No." I said, "I'm sorry, I'd love to, but no." And she couldn't understand. She thought I was being mean. And I said, "You do understand, if I take the pain away from that area of your back, I'll take away all feeling from that area in your back. and you could, and that is, it's there to serve a purpose. That
Yes.
pain, I said, no, I'm honestly not being mean. I said, but for anything from somebody stabbing you in the back to kind of, a really bad issue, I said, you wouldn't be able to feel it. I said, and that pain is there to alert you that something's wrong and needs doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I can definitely relate to what you're saying there. If you've got senior citizens who are in a position where you've put them into a trance, and then all of a sudden they're dancing around, and the next day they could really suffer from it, something chronic.
They've suffered some harm from it, and as you say, pain is a warning sign. And when you're going to work with somebody as a hypnotherapist, there are newer hypnotists who think they can do anything. If you're going to actually work with somebody who has pain, you need a medical referral.
Yeah.
At least you should in the United States. I know in the United Kingdom they have strict rules for this. So that's what you need to do. And the most common pain request I used to get is, I get headaches all the time. Can you get rid of the headaches? Well, again, if you get rid of the headaches, the reason they might be getting headaches is they have a brain tumor. So what have you actually done? You've accelerated their death.
Exactly.
You didn't help them. So again, you have to get a medical referral. And really, it's better to refer them back to the medical professionals, because all you can do is hurt them. Now, where you can work with pain is if they've been in an accident. Emergency hypnosis. Somebody's been in an accident, broken leg, injured arm, they're bleeding, they're freaking out. Well, if you're a hypnotist, you can be the authoritative person on the scene and say, look at me now. I'm going to distract, because you're just distracting them from the pain. I'm going to put you into hypnosis so the pain will not bother you, and you can put them into hypnosis quickly. And so for that purpose, that's a purpose where it's actually worthwhile.
And again, I'd love to clarify here that there's a huge difference between pain and disease.
Yes.
And I know, have you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza by any chance?
Yes.
He's absolutely brilliant with the way he works with the mind, placebos and nocebos to be able to kind of get rid of disease entirely through his meditative techniques and that kind of thing. While we're on that subject, if you don't mind discussing it, Dave, you've had similar things yourself. Is that all right?
I had early on in the pandemic, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I had and one of the hormones that for the blood test, the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, was way off. And they were convinced, one medical team I had that my plans under was convinced I had thyroid cancer. And the other team that I went to privately out of my own pocket, same diagnosis. And I would go in for seeing them, and their therapy treatment was going to be, once they could book me, surgery to remove a tumor that did not exist at the time. So I did self-hypnosis, envisioning small superheroes fighting off these cancer cells in my body for 90 days.
Wow. And
when we got to the 90th day, I went and got a blood test from both places, had two different arms taken blood from. Probably shouldn't have done that because I was convinced there would be a lab issue, but each time they got the same result. Well, the thyroid stimulating hormone number came back to normal. Don't know why. And I remember the email I got from my first doctor was, this is off. This is a significant issue. You're going to have problems. It's not good.
Wow.
Like, thank you for writing me a note. Couldn't you pick up the phone and call me? So scaring me to death. So fortunately that went away. And I had another issue in 1996, my right shoulder. I was playing handball and I felt a pop and I tore my rotator cuff.
Ouch.
To this day, I've never had surgery. So I went to see an orthopedic surgeon, and they did an MRI, and he said, you have a torn rotator cuff. I don't understand you because your strength is still good in all aspects. So I don't recommend surgery because you'll be out for 6 months. So I then went to the internet and I found this thing called the Rotator Cuff Solution, 7 steps, and bought the book. And there are all these different little weight exercises for your shoulders. I did them religiously to strengthen my shoulders. And to this date, we still have a torn rotator cuff. And the guy told me when I reached the age I am now, because this is 96, this was 28 years ago almost.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be able to raise this arm over my head.
Wow.
But I don't have any pain.
Wow.
So, and again, I use self-hypnosis. So I do self-hypnosis every day. A lot of people who are hypnotists don't use self-hypnosis on themselves, which is the interesting thing. They do it in real life to help other people, but they don't use it on themselves.
That's something I should definitely look into myself as well at some point, because there are a lot of areas in my life that I'd certainly like to improve.
And you can do it but you have to do it on a consistent basis. It takes discipline. Little actions every day to be successful. Doing things you don't want to do is discipline, because you need to do them to be successful and to live a better life.
Oh, for sure. That it's making that habitual ritual of like kind of getting into a routine of it all. So, would you mind if we discussed a little bit about your mind model? Because it's
sure.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, as a hypnotist, we believe there's a way the mind works, and it's a setup for your clients to help them understand how you're going to help them with the therapy. So, the first thing is, as a hypnotist or any therapist, whether you're a social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, minister, if you're going to work with somebody, a friend, the person you're working with needs to be ready for change.
Yeah.
So you can be the world's greatest therapist, but if they're not ready for change, the person you're working with, nothing will happen. So they may have come to see you in your office and they're distracted by life. They had traffic coming in. It was terrible, almost got in an accident. They're having financial issues. They got into an argument with their boss. They hate their job. They're having problems at home with their spouse or one of the kids. So as a hypnotist, I would allot 2 hours for a session. That's what I would do, because the session wouldn't take 2 hours all the time. But that way I'd had enough time to rest between the next session.
Got you. Yeah.
The therapists who bill with insurance companies, because as a hypnotist, I couldn't do that because I'm not a medical professional in the States. I'm not a licensed social worker or psychiatrist and all that. So I couldn't bill. I had to get cash, credit cards. That's how we got paid. So a little bit different. You have to, if you're them, you're only billing them for 55 minutes or so, right? So unfortunately, some of them don't care if you're ready to change or not. You showed up for your appointment, they're going to just go through the motions. And if you don't change, it's your fault. Well, that's true. But I'm the therapist. My job is to get them ready to change. I learned this from my teacher, Gil Boyne. Get them ready to change. So that would mean listen for a few minutes to their troubles of the day and then push it away. So now that that's gone, and you would just say, I would always say with my hand, now that that issue is gone, we can focus on why you're here today, can't we? And when they nod their head and this has been pushed aside, it's a little Bandler thing, right? Pushed aside, you see what we're doing, then we can focus on the issue. So then I would tell them on the first session, here's how the mind works. You have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is your aware mind you're using right now. It analyzes everything that I say. It makes rational decisions about that information to decide whether it's true or false. It has something called willpower, but willpower is temporary. And the way to help you with that is on New Year's Day, everyone has a New Year's Day resolution to lose weight and get in shape. Well, it doesn't work because willpower is temporary. So they understand that. So especially if they want to stop smoking, you decide you want to stop smoking on New Year's Day, you're still smoking, it's August. So willpower doesn't work. You have what's called temporary memory. And they initially will not understand that, but let's explain what that is. You check into a hotel on a trip. You're in room H616. So for the whole trip, you know you're in room H616, but it's a year later. I asked, what room were you in when you stayed at the Beverly Hills Hilton? They don't remember because they didn't have to. So that's temporary memory. Wives understand temporary memory better than husbands because they'll call their husband who's driving to the grocery store on the way home from work. I need you to pick up these items. Husband doesn't write it down, says, I got it. He misses a few things when he comes home. So temporary memory is to make them laugh. And then you have your critical factor, and that's the filter that prevents things from going into the subconscious mind. And the way to describe it would be perhaps you're watching the evening news and everyone has their favorite news anchor, their news team that they like to watch. So the States, we have lots of stations, local stations. You're watching the local news. If the wrong news people are on, you can't stand them. So you have to get to your favorite people. Just like you'll have favorite announcers for sporting events.
Yeah.
You have favorite music you like to listen to. So someone's listening to some music in the car you don't like, it causes this to go up. You're not going to enjoy it because you're not relaxed. So you have to explain what we're going to do with hypnosis is we're going to relax you so we can bypass the critical factor. And that all the suggestions and stories I tell you under hypnosis, we're going to talk to your subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is a computer. It's like your hard drive. It remembers everything that happened to you from the day you were born. Now, some people believe in a past life. Whether that's true or false, that's for that person to decide. So all the memories are stored there. Now, when you do regression therapy and you recall past events in someone's life, the thing you have to remember when you're doing that is you don't know if they're real or imagined. There's no way to know because you weren't there. You're just using their information to heal them. It's also a source of permanent memory, which again could be false, because the more someone recalls an event, the story changes every time they tell it, because it becomes different. People don't realize that, but the story changes. And the way to know that is, it's the old story where you have a group of 20 people. I start at the beginning. I tell them the fox is red, and it was under a tree in Sherwood Forest. When we get to the 20th person, the fox is no longer red. It's not a fox, it's a lion. And it was ready to eat somebody. And it's with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So how did it start there? That's what happens. People's story changes. You have habits, and people will understand that. But you don't just have the two habits, good or bad. You have what are called utilitarian habits. Those are automatic functions in your body. You breathe, your eyelids blink, you sweat, you can hear things, your heart's beating. Those are utilitarian habits. And under hypnosis, we can only speed them up or slow them down. We can't change those habits because those are for bodily function and for life. But we can help you reprogram yourself by pushing out a bad habit. And the bad habit is what the client says it is, not what the hypnotist says, and replace it with the habit you now want, which is the good habit. You have emotions that are there in your subconscious mind. It's the seat of all your emotional experience. And then it's also your protective mind. Your subconscious mind protects you from real or imagined danger. So when the conscious mind and subconscious mind work together, you can do anything. When they're in conflict, that's where the problems occur.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing you have to know as a hypnotist, and you don't tell that your client this is just off to the side to help people. What someone believes to be true is true for them and no one else. And it's important to understand that. If you're working with somebody who said the wall here is black, but it's actually white, well, then the wall is black. You can't sit there and interrogate them and try and persuade them that it's white. Instead, you want to ask them a question. What makes you perceive the wall to be black? You want to understand.
Yeah.
So Bandler has this famous question where he would say to somebody, well, how does that work for you? Why don't you share with me your experience and how that works for you? So that he can get into their mind and understand how their mind works. Just you're sneaking in there. So the next thing you have to educate the client with is during hypnosis, we're going to give you a bunch of suggestions to change your habit. You may want to be a non-smoker. You want to get rid of the phobia. You want to change your anxiety response when you walk into a room to take a test. So these 4 responses to suggestion are true, not just in hypnosis, but in everyday conversations. So the first response is, I like that suggestion, and I know it's going to work for me. Those suggestions will all work because you know it will work for you.
Yeah.
There might be a suggestion I give you where you'll say, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that suggestion. I don't quite like it. Well, that won't work. So an example of that might be you say to somebody, there's a new Italian restaurant down the street. Let's go to lunch there. They don't like Italian food. They're uncomfortable with it, but they're hungry. They can probably find something on the menu to eat, but they're not going to be happy being there. They'd rather go to McDonald's because that's what they like. So then they're neutral. They don't care. So those suggestions aren't going to do anything. And then there's the last suggestion people think will work, but it doesn't work ever in life. I like that suggestion and I hope it works for me. Well, hope is a wish for something that's not there.
Yeah.
So politicians campaign with the word hope. And then they arrive in office and there's still hope and nothing happened. So hope got them in office, but they don't know what to do because they didn't wish them anything. So you have to discriminate that in their mind. And then you have to explain to them, I'm going to give you thousands of suggestions in the next hour. Your subconscious mind will filter the suggestions and it will only grab onto the ones that will work for you because you know they're right. Now, here's the thing for you. I've been doing this a long time. And because I've been doing this a long time, I've helped over 5,000 people stop smoking in that very chair you're sitting in. I'm going to give you all the suggestions that will be the ones that will work. So you'll know the suggestions I'm about to give you will work because you want to be a non-smoker and remain a non-smoker for the rest of your life, don't you? And that's a long, long time, isn't it? Now, when they nod their head there, they've actually stopped smoking. But they don't know it yet. They just don't realize it yet. So that's what we do to teach somebody how the mind works. Along with it, there are things called the 12 rules of the mind, which is very important to understand, which the first rule is everything begins in thought. Everything. And that thoughts are only things. So when people get stuck in life, the thoughts are rolling through their mind and they're pretty sure I'm a failure, this isn't going to work. Well, that becomes reality. The best way to think about it as a person, the average person out there, is they get up on Monday morning. It's Monday. It's going to be a bad day. I have to go to work. It's not TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Well, every day is a great day when you get up. You're alive. But people don't realize that. So then they get up, they stub their toe. See, it's Monday. I stubbed my toe. They then have a cup of coffee. They spill it on their clothes. It's a bad day. They get into the car. Traffic is terrible. It's Monday. It's a bad day. So your mind starts looking for validation of your thoughts. So you're spinning out of control. If you catch yourself there, you have to stop it like that. So this is just not true. The next thing that happens is every thought or idea causes a physical reaction. All the time. That's psychosomatic illness, as your friend works so well with. Then your mind tends to move it in the dominant direction of your thoughts. So again, you're programming yourself with your thoughts. It's a freight train if it's out of control. You have to immediately stop where you are and say, I'm going to regain my life. My mind is not going to tell me that this is what's going to happen to me. I'm in charge of my thoughts, not this runaway train here. Because there's two people talking to you up here. You can't let the bad person tell you what to do. You have to shut them out. Then the next thing that happens in the rule of mind is what you expect tends to be realized. You become what you think about. Here's the most important rule of mind, in my opinion. It's number 6. People don't understand it. And they'll fight me on it all the time because they say I'm wrong. But it's this. Words and thoughts have no power over you. The only power they have is the power that you now give them. Now, you'll hear people say words are vicious, words hurt, words are this, words are that. They only hurt because the person listening to the words takes them in as hurtful things. Instead, if I met somebody that said, I don't like your show, I think you suck, you're terrible, and I'll say, thank you for sharing your ideas, but I know I'm very good. I know I'm a great hypnotist. I know that I did a great show today. I know that by all the people who are here today. And that's your opinion. You can have that opinion. But I'm not going to own it because I'm not going to take on what you just said. So you can't do that because you also don't know the basis of why they're saying what they're saying. So I'll repeat it again. Words and thoughts have no power over you. None. The only power they have is the power that you now give them. Most important rule of the mind. And the other way to think about that is people react to things rather than calmly listen to everything and then decide how to approach the situation. It's that's the way the famous Donald Trump lives his life. He reacts to things. He's an entertaining character, but he reacts to things. And that may have helped him become president in the first place, but it doesn't help you stay president because as president, you must be presidential, whatever that means. And you can't react to people anymore because you have to be calm, cool, and collected. And you need to listen to things and not let these things bother you. If they bother you, then here's the problem. You don't have any self-confidence.
Yeah, so it's similar to something that I heard a while ago, which was events are neither negative nor positive until you label them. You know,
Exactly. It's the
and
same thing. Yeah.
exactly the same with words. You
Yeah.
know, it's and I've said this, especially in the world we live in at the minute, where everybody seems to be getting so offended. And I
By
tried to,
anything.
yeah,
Anything.
and,
Yeah.
and I tried to explain this not so long back to somebody. I said, I can't offend you. I
Right.
said, oh, you can choose to be offended by what I've said, but I can't offend you.
You know,
Yeah,
because that was
because
your choice to be offended.
that's it. It's subjective. So you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's down to you to how you react. So and this way, because most of the time there's only these 6 rules, isn't there? But you've got 12, haven't you?
I have 6 more. 6 more.
Hey,
So the next rule is imagination is more powerful than knowledge with dealing with the mind.
wow.
Reason is easily overruled by imagination. So wherever imagination or logic are in conflict, imagination usually wins.
Mm.
People don't realize that. So a real easy way to understand it is you go to a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we go to the movie, we realize the movie is fake.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the movie theater is set up as a ritual process. People don't know that. It was actually designed in the 1920s by a hypnotist named Henry Aarons out in the States to put people in a ritual so they would go into trance to watch the movie.
Mm.
So the ritual is buy a ticket. You need a ticket
Yeah.
to get in. Modern day, ticket might be on your phone, but you still need
Yeah.
a ticket to get in. The second thing that's very clever at the movie theater is they sell food. Now, the food is sold not just for profit, but to activate the reticular activating system in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it does that is when you walk through the movie theater, you smell popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
So what it's done is it activated the sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that. And yeah, it forces you to buy food because they need to make money. But at a movie, people have smelled things in a movie,
Mm.
even though there's no smell coming from the screen. So I remember the movie Jaws. There was
Mhm.
guy was putting chum onto the deck, and it smells
Yeah.
terrible. And everyone was, in the theater was grossed out by it. But you couldn't smell it.
No, no, that's it. Yeah.
No. So now, next, what happens is at the theater, you go in and sit down. So next part of the ritual, you sit down. The lighting is dim; it's not all the way dim yet,
Mm-hmm.
and they start to build expectation. And the way they do that is they play trailers to upcoming movies.
Mm-hmm.
We as human beings compartmentalize the trailers. We'll say, that's a terrible movie. I'll never see that. That one I'd like to buy and own on DVD. That one I'll wait till it comes out on cable or streaming. That one there, my friend would love that. I need to tell my friend about that movie. That's his favorite favorite type of movie. And then another one will come out. Oh, that's great. That's a movie you have to see only on the big screen. I need to see that. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Then what they do is they'll do today a little sound check where they'll check the sound of all the speakers so you can hear that. And again, activate your hearing again.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll have somebody come out and talk about turning off the phones.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
when that happens, when I was a little kid, you'd always hear parents say, shh, because the movie's about to start. Now, I did a little thing at the end of a movie. One time I stood out in front of the open door and I asked people, did you hear shh before the movie started? They all said yes. Nobody did it.
Wow.
They just remember. It's a suggestion I gave. They're in that state. So you then stop talking, and then the movie begins. Now, when the movie begins, the magic wand has been waved by the hypnotist, the movie makers.
Yeah.
So you're going to let it into your subconscious mind. And if the movie is great, your imagination takes over and you get caught up in the movie. But if you hate the movie, logic comes into play, and you don't like the movie, you begin to dissect the movie. You might see it's a movie from today's era, 2020 to maybe 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an old phone booth sitting there on the street. Well, it shouldn't be there because there aren't phone booths anymore.
Yeah.
They don't exist, right? Or there's a rotary phone and it should be a touch tone phone or the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to see things that are not there that the people who made the movie missed when they were
Yeah.
screening it. So logic takes over and you pick the movie apart. Well, that's imagination and logic being in conflict. That's how it works.
Great.
So next, opposing ideas cannot be held one at the same time.
Right.
You can only hold one idea at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the old thing. It's all about multitasking. People
Yeah.
think they can multitask, but when you multitask, you make lots of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually faster to do one task at a time. And it goes back to an old saying by the famous Formula One race car driver, Jackie Stewart from Scotland, who from the early 70s, when Formula One was real Formula One,
Yeah.
accidents would happen, and there were great races back then. Someone asked him, how do you drive faster during a race? He said, in order to drive faster, you must drive slower. And that's the process here. In order to do things faster, you must slow down in life. So don't multitask. Do one item at a time. Because if you're doing multiple things, you're really holding opposing ideas in your mind. Your mind gets confused. It's just my opinion. Of course, everyone will email me, hate mail, that they can do 100 things at a time. God bless you. You'd be more efficient and effective if you'd stop doing that.
Yeah.
Now, once an idea has been accepted by the subconscious mind, it remains until it's replaced by another idea. The longer it remains, the more opposition there is to replacing it with another idea. That's the subconscious mind being stubborn.
Yeah.
So the longer someone becomes a non-smoker, the more likely they'll stay a non-smoker for the rest of their life. Next, an emotionally induced symptom tends to cause organic change if persisted long enough. Psychosomatic illness. Next rule of mind, number 11. Each suggestion acted upon creates less opposition to successive suggestion. Now, you see that in a stage show, because at the beginning, you might have 20 to 30 people up there. The hypnotist keeps, say, all of them except 5. So you're left with 15 to 20. And every time they say the word sleep now after a skit, it's easier and easier to put them back into hypnosis because they're taking the suggestion and they're more comfortable with it. And that's what that's all about. It's the same thing when you're persuading somebody in sales. In sales, if you replace the word hypnosis with persuasion or suggestion, that's all we're doing in sales. We have to get past the critical factor, and all the suggestions we give go to the subconscious mind. The last one is, when dealing with the subconscious mind and its functions, the greater the conscious efforts, the less the subconscious response. So the more someone's resisting from the aware part, the less their subconscious mind will do things. So you see that in sports. We'll take basketball. Somebody is forcing their shot because they're not having a good game, and they're missing it because they're focusing more. They got to score. We're behind. Where the guy who's in the zone, he's unconscious, they say, because he can shoot from anywhere and not even see the basket, and it goes in because he's not forcing it with his aware mind. He's feeling it. So you see that most in sports. Aware place. And those are the 12 rules of the mind, according to me.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I'm going to have to get a copy of those from you. And
absolutely. They're all yours.
Definitely at some point would like to go a little bit further into psychosomatic illness, and I have a chat with you about that. Before we're coming up to the hour, but before we go, I'd like to do a couple of things. But we'll discuss about some of the stuff you've done with the CIA, and also I want to mention an up-and-coming guest who is Sarah Bernardo. Hopefully, I think you're going to hopefully work on an introduction. Who from what I've been told, is a fantastic singer and vocalist. And I believe you're trying to put an event together with her and Disturbed at the moment. That might be coming up soon. Is that right?
Sure. So I'll talk CIA first. So a lot of stuff with police departments, intelligence services. Over the years, I've helped people recover parts of their memory for investigations. Now, again, when you do that, there's no validation that what you're doing under hypnosis, that the information they remember is true or not. It's what they think they remember. So the real basic rule is, when you use these people to do that, you're really sacrificing them as a witness to put on the court stand, because some jurisdictions in the United States don't allow hypnotized witnesses to go on the stand. You want to take those people and gather information to help them find what they're looking for. And it became very, very prominent after I'd been on the show Mythbusters, which was on the Discovery Channel out here in 2007. There was an episode called Voice Flame Extinguishers. And the premise of the show, for the big part of the show, was to put out flame with sound.
Oh, wow.
And then there was an underlying premise of hypnosis myths.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the second hypnotist on the show. Unfortunately, the first hypnotist had a very bad time. You have to watch the whole show to see her experience. But I was asked to come in the day after Tori, Karen, Grant, the three underlying characters, had watched an event take place that they didn't know they were going to be tested on afterwards. And they had some actors come in to deliver a package. And they delivered this package. They asked them 58 questions after the event took place. I didn't know what the event was. I come in the next day and I'm asked to hypnotize them, three people, and ask them the same 58 questions under hypnosis. But I don't know that until after they're hypnotized.
Right.
I arrive on sets. Carrie, the main character, who's the pretty redhead, said, "You won't be able to hypnotize any of us," which told me there was a problem with the first hypnotist they had.
Yeah.
And there's like 9 people there because it's a small setup. And I said, "I can hypnotize all of you in less than 15 seconds. They all laugh at me. I proceed to quickly validate who I am and build some rapport with them. And they stand in front of 3 chairs. It's on my website. You can click the link to see what happens. And all 3 of them get hypnotized in less than 15 seconds. And afterwards, they recalled many more things than when they were not hypnotized. And the premise that they were going to bust me for that didn't happen. It was confirmed that your memory would be improved. That's really what you're doing with these investigations with these people, trying to get information. And then back to Disturbed and Sarah is we all met through the pandemic. I've never met any of them personally. So Sarah, I met through Instagram during the lockdown, and she's turned out to be a very good friend, somebody I've never met. She's got a solo singing career. She's written over 100 songs. I believe she's only 28 years old now. She's from Canada originally, lives in Sydney with her boyfriend. And she's had one of her songs called Sugarcoat. It's in a movie. It's pretty cool. She does gigs all around Sydney, 3-4 days a week to make money. And then she's in a country western band, all girls rock band called Southbound XO. And they're very good. They've had a couple #1 hits in Australia, which is pretty impressive. And then she used to have a different band, emo, let's say pop rock band. She'd probably tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, which is true, called Southbound, and not Southbound, called Start Your Own Cult. And they were excellent too. She wrote all the songs for them. So they had some great songs, but that band broke up. So don't know the whole surroundings behind it. She's just doing the 2 now. She's a wonderful singer, fascinating career to talk to her about because she moved from Canada to Australia against the wishes of her mom.
Wow.
So on her own. So, and has built this music career. It's pretty impressive. So Disturbed is interesting because during the pandemic, they had recorded a song way back in 2016 called Sounds in Silence. They did a cover of the Simon and Garfunkel song. And they initially became popular after they appeared on the Conan show out here in the States. But someone was clever enough to take their version. And as you've seen it before, they set it to the scenes of the pandemic with all the empty streets.
Yeah.
And when you watch it with the lead singer, David, you hear him sing, his voice is tremendous with it. It puts hair on the back of your neck sticking up because it's disturbing. I mean, not to quote their name, but it just, you can emotionally feel the thing. And I wrote them a little note on their YouTube thing, and then chat started happening to put together an event with them. And later on, they wanted to talk about having an opening singer for the act. And I had met Sarah. I sent them Sarah's information, and they thought she'd be phenomenal. That's where we're at with that now. Hopefully one day we can put that all together. And hopefully one day I can invite Sarah to the US and have her just do her own show. And maybe one day she'd like to open for me. But that's all up to her. So
that'd be brilliant. Well, please keep us posted with that, and and follow us on the usual social media sites, and we'll try and keep everybody as updated as we can with that. That's absolutely fantastic. Something I'll definitely be going to myself. And before we wrap it up, I remember you telling me that there is a character called Dr. Jefferson Paul in a series of books, which is based on yourself. Can you tell people a little bit about that?
Sure. There's a friend of mine named Joe Frizzetti. He lives in Las Vegas. He was a student of my hypnosis classes years ago, decided to write a book on how hypnosis can improve your lives through a novel. So he created a character called David Christian, which is a composite of all the people I've helped. And it's really also Joe himself, who had problems in his life, who met a famous hypnotist in Las Vegas named Dr. Jefferson Paul. Dr. Jefferson Paul is actually me. And everything in Joe's 3 books is what happened to me and how I help people. So the name of the book, it's Master or Servant, Secrets of the Wisdom Cafe. And there's 3 volumes of it as David Christian moves through life to become successful. He turns into a motivational speaker of all things at the end, but crashed and burned along the way. Drugs, alcohol, women, all the issues you can have.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. And the famous hypnotist, he would meet him for coffee at the Stardust Hotel, where I used to operate out of, and come meet me at the coffee shop after my show and talk about things. And wisdom was divulged in this little coffee shop. So wonderful books. Go to my Instagram page. You want to find out where they're at. The little highlights section, I have a thing called the trilogy. You can click on that link there, or you can just go Master or Servant on Amazon and put the name Joe Frizzetti. It's 2 Z's and 2 T's. And they're all available. They're on Kindle as well as the other. I get no money from the book, folks. So I'm not selling anything for me. I get no royalties or anything from it. All the money goes to Joe. So it's not for me. So
brilliant. And then lastly, we've been teasing them with it for a while now because, as we said, you've done a little bit of work with the CIA and the DOJ over in the States there. And can you tell us a little bit about that before we call it before we wrap up completely?
Well, long ago when I was a young guy, I would be called in to help with certain things where there are problems in the United States, and some famous attorneys were involved with the Department of Justice where they needed to get information. I can't really, some of the stuff I really can't talk about. I mean, if some of the attorneys pass away, probably that part will go away, but we'd be working on terrorists. We'd be working on people who, homegrown groups trying to cause problems in different states. Those are the things we worked on. And I did it all for free. So I never asked for a dime, although they would pay me. It was to help the country. So that's all I can really say. So
yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. And I suppose it was interesting for you to see some of the inner workings of the intelligence agencies. And
well, they have. We'll just hold this up here. The CIA has about a 15-page document about how to use hypnosis for interrogation and to interview people. The most interesting thing to me is they have a statement of consent form for the client that you're working with, or non-client if he's not cooperative. So that they have to sign. So they have a bunch of procedures. It's well thought out. Actually, the lay hypnotist who's working with their clients could probably learn a lot by reading through their rules. So they did a better job with their clients when they come in to see them. So,
And for anybody who wanted to learn hypnosis, where would you say is the best place for them to start if they wanted to start down the road of learning it themselves?
The best place to start is to buy a couple of books. So most people that want to learn hypnosis, they've seen a stage show. So they want to learn how a stage show works. So the best #1 book to buy there is called The Encyclopedia of Stage Hypnosis. It's written by Orman McGill, who was the Dean of American Hypnotists. He was a friend of mine. Used to live out here near me in Palo Alto. Wonderful man. Everything you need to know about doing a stage show is in that book. You don't have to buy anyone else's book. So I'm just telling you people out there, you want to learn about stage hypnotism, Orman McGill, the Encyclopedia of Stage Hypnosis. It also has things about hypnotherapy in it too. A wonderful book. It's about 500 pages long. It's a great book. I don't recommend getting Kindle. You want to get the real book, the hardback, so you can mark up things and put notes as to where you want to borrow information from, so you can learn how to do this. The next book is there's a great book called Hypnotherapy. It's written by Dave Ellman. The man who came up with the Ellman induction. It talks about him helping dentists use hypnosis in their practices. It's a wonderful book. And then there's a book about hypnotherapy by A.M. Krasner. I believe the title of that's just Hypnotherapy. And that's another great book. Those 3 books alone are more than enough to get you started.
Brilliant.
Then the next thing to do is, if you want to learn therapy, is you need to find a local hypnotist and go in for a session and find out what it's all about. And then if you like the person, because again, it's about know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
You might ask them where they learned. And because they're good. So find out where they learned, how they learned. And there's all sorts of organizations, unfortunately. That's the good and bad about hypnosis. Some are good, some are bad. Some are only in the business to sell products and trainings, and they're not very good. But no training is bad if you practice. So what I will always tell someone, if you go somewhere, you learn, it's a weekend course, a week-long course, a several-week course, you need to practice. Just because you go to the training doesn't mean you can do anything.
That's right, yeah.
You have to practice. So hypnotherapy, in my opinion, a lot of people like to do it over Zoom. I don't think Zoom's the way to do it, because to me, it's a contact sport. Personal hypnotherapy, I want to be in the room with them. I actually want to touch them on the arm if I need to for various reasons, touch them on their neck. I want to see their physical response. I want to make sure I'm in control of all the distractions in the room. I don't want somebody in Zoom where people are coming in and out of the room. Their phone's on. I just don't want any of that. Stage show, the same thing. You got to do it full contact, but you can rehearse in front of an empty couch. You can rehearse in front of an empty chair, rehearsing what you're going to say.
Which is what Elman did, wasn't he? He actually practiced on a lamp.
He practiced, yeah. You just practice. You practice. So it's what singers do. Singers are writing a song and then they sing to nobody, right? They rehearse.
That's right.
It's what actors do when they're preparing for a movie or a theater. They're rehearsing to nobody. They're memorizing the lines, the emotion they use, tonality of their voice, expression. You have to rehearse. And this is why people never get good at anything. So the great example in America is the businessmen go play golf once a year, and they suck.
Because that's the only time they go.
You're not going to be Tiger Woods because you're not hitting 1,000 golf balls a day.
Exactly.
So if you don't use it every day, you're not going to be very good at it. It's also salespeople. There's salespeople could be so much better if they practice selling. But if you ask a group, if you go to a sales team and you ask them, what's the last sales book you read? No one's read a sales book. If you ask them every day, how often do you practice selling? Well, I sell all day long. No, that's not what I asked. How long do you practice selling? Well, you don't practice. So you have sports teams. You got rugby and soccer in your world, cricket. Well, all these people, they practice. They're great people. They're practicing all day long. That's why they're good at what they do. Most of us in our professions don't practice what we do. They don't practice enough. That's why they're not good. So I can tell you every day of my life since 1987, I do a self-hypnosis session every day, every single day. I never miss. This is what it would be bad for my image. Two is I either read a book for an hour about hypnosis. I may have read the book before, but you can always read the book again and learn more things. Or I have a big VHS and DVD collection, and I might watch a DVD. It could be training by my friend Gil Boyne, or there was a great hypnotist called Jerry Kine who passed away, another great guy you could watch. I might watch somebody's stage show, and their show may not be very good, but even though it's not very good, you can learn why it's not very good.
That's right.
Your own show.
Exactly.
The other way to improve your show that people don't realize is why I got so good is I didn't watch other hypnotists. I watched people who were great at giving shows. Who were they? Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Wayne Newton. These guys gave a show. And the way we say that is the way a hypnosis show is put together. There's your intro. You walk out. Sometimes you have theme music. You have an opening you give. You bring volunteers up on stage. You put them in the hypnosis, and then you do skits. Well, every part of that has to be choreographed because every piece of the show is a show. The intro is a show. Walking out, whether you're coming from backstage onto the stage where you're walking from the front of the auditorium. It's a bigger show.
Yeah.
That's a show. The way you do it, you talk to people, shake hands. It's a show. You come up on stage. It's a show. The people bring out the torch to eat fire. That's a show. You talk about how hypnosis works. You have to do it in a very entertaining and fun way. That's a show. The volunteers come up. That's a show. The volunteers are seated. I like to do a quick experiment. That's a show. Now, where do you learn that from? Well, if you watch a Sinatra concert, everything he does is a show. And what you learn from him is he likes to compliment the orchestra or band he has. He knows he's the show, but he doesn't say he's the show because he's Sinatra. So he'll always talk about, he'll thank the band. He'll talk about who's there before he sings a song. He tells you who wrote the song, who rearranged the song, who made it better, who sang it better than him, why he likes the song. Now you can't wait to hear the song. You know what you've heard it before. That's a show. See? And he's complimenting all the people behind the scenes of that song, and then he sings a beautiful song. And then when it's done, he'll nod his head and bow. But again, he'll thank the orchestra because without them, there's no music. You watch Sammy Davis Jr. do the same thing. You watch Dean Martin from the same era do the same thing. You watch Wayne Newton do a show. He used to come out in Las Vegas when he's lost his voice now. So he's not the same man, but he used to come out and he would sing Suspicious Minds. But it was the longest Suspicious Minds of all time because he went around the entire stage area and then out into the audience to meet every single person and thank them. He would kiss the women on their hand or cheek, sometimes on the lips, because back then you could do that. Woke movement wouldn't come get you. And then if he was sitting with, a gentleman, he'd reach out and shake their hand or pat you on the side and all of that. And I mean, he had bonded in 15 minutes of singing this one song with the entire audience. Beautiful. And then he'd come back on stage and he'd point to a few tables to buy them some drinks and bonding to the audience. Then what you would see him do, he would do all these different songs. Everything he did was a show. It was all, but you had to break it down that way. You watch it. So then he can play something like 30 instruments. Like, I don't know the exact number, but it's a very large number. And in the middle of the show, he's self-taught on all of them. No one taught him. He will play all of them. And he works up this extreme amount of sweat. It's the most amazing thing you can see. He goes from instrument to instrument to instrument. And every one of those instruments is a show because of the way he does it. So you see, that's life. And people don't live their life that way. So when you're walking out in public and you meet people, look, in today's world, everyone's videotaping you. People are taking pictures of you unknown. There's cameras everywhere. You have to know you're on display the whole time. All the world's a stage. We're all actors, Shakespeare, right? So everything you do in life is a show. You have to remember that. To be a great performer, that's it. Now, if you're a therapist, I'll give you a couple of tricks. These are great tricks. So in my therapy office, I used to have 2 chairs for the clients to sit in. They were recliners. One was leather, one was cloth.
Right.
And I used to sit in a small little chair, would be nothing more than a banquet style chair. And I had a small desk behind me where I had notes. I never had scripts to read to people. I didn't have that. I had a little white noise machine to get rid of some of the sound distractions from the hallway outside the office. And I had a little induction music to play. None of it you needed. That's really all for show. But the trick was when someone would come into the office the first time, I would say, where would you like to sit? Now, the interesting thing is 90% of the men choose the leather chair. 90% of the women choose the cloth chair.
How about that?
Yeah. And I learned this from my wife because when we decided to fill the office with some seats, she said, we need to get some recliners. I said, yeah. So we found the right recliners. She says, but one of them has to be cloth. And I said, why? She goes, I don't like sitting in leather chairs. I said, why is that? She said, most women would prefer a cloth chair. And you need to have some pillows and blankets for them to be more comfortable. So we had all that. So when they choose their chair, didn't matter which chair it was, I would always say, that's a great choice. The last person who sat there stopped smoking. And you will too today, because that's why you're here, isn't it? And once they nod, they're in compliance, they're in agreement. So you're validating them as to why they came. They came to the right place. They just made a great decision. It's a show.
Yeah. I love that, because I thought you were going somewhere with it to start with, because it was something that very similar to what I was taught when I was learning, and it was to have an option of either a sofa and a bed, or a chaise lounge and a reclining chair, or whatever. And basically the theory was to say, would you like to sit here to go into trance, or would you like to sit here to go into trance? And what it did, it presupposed that wherever they sit, they were going into trance, and it would work for them. So but either way, I mean, it's you both can be used in a fantastically powerful way of kind of getting that presupposition in there.
And the thing you have to learn, again, because everything's a show, is it's your language. So you may come up with a way to explain something, but then you want to think about, is there a more elegant way? Is there a simpler way? Is there a better way to explain it? Because there always is. So you want to listen for ideas. And my ideas came from watching these other show people. The other person I learned how to be better at listening and helping interact with other people was, we had a guy out here named Johnny Carson who had the Tonight Show for years. And you can go watch Johnny Carson. I'll send you a link when we're done, of all sorts of things. But he can interact with guests that he likes and doesn't like. Now, it's called the Johnny Carson Show because he's the star of the show. But when people would sit down as guests, they were the star. And he knew how to make them the star, no matter what was going on with them that evening they came out. Now, some guests were better than others. Some guests he wished never came on the show, and he didn't like. And you could tell that, but he knew how to get by. You could learn how to talk to somebody. And he was another guy. Everything he did, because he's being filmed on TV, was a show. So he did many, many shows throughout the show. And people don't realize that. So these great entertainers know that. Now, a lot of the singers today, modern day singers today, don't operate that way.
No,
they're getting through their sets. They're making money, but this art of giving a show is gone. So you can go back to Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, everything he did was a show.
Oh yeah.
People don't.
My daughter's a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I've looked back at as she's been watching. She's 10 years old, and she watches all the old videos and the concerts and everything else. I mean, the difference between just listening to his music and watching the show that he put on, just phenomenal. So,
and everything he did was a show.
Yeah.
You see, so a boxer who was like that was Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
everything he did when he talked to the press, training camp. Before the fights, when they met in the ring, the way he talked to people, he was putting on a show. He was there to do that. He knew the art of entertainment. So the show is not about the entertainer. I always teach hypnotists that you're entertaining three audiences. So if you're doing a high school show or a college show, for example, someone will say, who are the three audiences? Well, there's the kids, the students who are there at the show. Maybe you have 1,000 people in the theater, but there are their parents at home. Now, a lot of these kids' parents have a lot of money. You could get a corporate event or a private show from them because they're going to tell their parents about the show. And if they don't like you, you've got 1,000 people saying they don't like you. Now, who else is there? Isn't there? Well, there's the invisible audience. There's all the people they know that they're going to tell about and share on social media these days about the show. So you have three audiences you're entertaining. And you have to always remember, you can't defend any of them today. You have to entertain all of them.
Yeah. So that's brilliant. Dave, before we finish, is there anything that you think I should have covered that I haven't that is worth mentioning?
You just should tell them all about your book.
You've just finished reading it, so thank you. Well, here we go. I'll let you say. What were your thoughts on the book?
His book is a wonderful spy novel. There are three characters in the book. It's fast-paced action. You have no idea how it's going to turn out. And along the way, he cleverly writes little tidbits called tradecraft, which gives you the secrets of how in your case, MI5 and the intelligence agencies do things that you never would have thought about. Some of them are common sense, but you never think about it. And it gives you insight into what they're thinking about when they're trying to escape or move along and get more information. It was brilliantly done because you laid those little things called tradecraft at the right parts of the book to explain how things work. And it took the mystery away of how does this actually work? Because they're not supermen doing this. They're smart people applying interesting principles that actually work. So it was brilliant. So,
oh, that was a phenomenal review. Thank you very much. That's,
you're welcome.
Yeah, you're very eloquent, Dave. Thank you. So yeah, lastly, would you be interested in coming back and joining us again at some point?
Anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So for those of you who haven't, please hit the like and subscribe button and come and see us again. And again, Dave, you're on Instagram and you're on Facebook as well, aren't you?
I'm on Facebook, and you can always go to my website. And at the bottom of my website are all the socials. So
brilliant. Thank you. And what's your website, Dave?
It's simply drdavehill.com. So
brilliant.
drdavehill.com.
Fantastic. Thank you once again.
You're welcome.